What if the heaviness in your mind, that voice that tells you to wait and wonder, was never truly yours to begin with? It wasn't born with you. It was installed through years of listening to stories about limitation, of witnessing brilliant people settle, of watching giants shrink themselves to fit inside cages built from other people's fears. What if every hesitation you've ever felt, every quiet whisper that urged you to hold back and question your own capacity was merely borrowed, programmed, repeated, but never native to your soul? Because you were not designed for self-doubt. You were engineered for creation. You were built for ascent. You were crafted for victory. Not later, not once the stars align, but now. And if you stay with me today, not halfway, but with your full presence, if you breathe these concepts in, voice them aloud, and return to them consistently, a fundamental recalibration will begin. This is not a motivational speech. This is an identity rewrite, a complete system overhaul for an operating system that has allowed hesitation to steer for far too long. When we finish, the version of you that accepted mediocrity as destiny will feel like a stranger. Because doubt, as I will prove, is merely a mental habit. And habits can be shattered. But conviction is a deliberate choice. It is the act of reclaiming the person you were before the world taught you to make yourself small. Today, we return to that person. That person knew they were destined for impact. That person didn't require external validation to take the first step. That person behaved as if triumph was the only possible outcome. And listen closely, because this is a truth few ever hear. That person is still within you, watching, waiting, wondering when you'll mute the old recording and start moving like a creator once more. So say it with me right now. I was not built to hesitate. I was built to conquer. Louder. I was not made to wonder. I was made to act. Say it until the rust of indecision falls from your voice. I do not wait for bravery. I advance regardless. Because today we aren't playing with concepts. We are codifying them into law. And once you legislate a new reality in your mind, your body, your voice, and your results have no choice but to fall in line. Stay with me from this first word to the final breath. Let's begin the permanent removal of doubt from your core identity. Let me be unequivocal. You did not arrive in this world with doubt. No human does. Doubt is not an innate instinct. It is not woven into your spirit. It is a conditioned response, an environmental illness, a psychological parasite that thrives only when nourished. And the world, my friend, is filled with feeders. You entered this life with wonder, with drive, with an inner fire. Observe any infant. He doesn't contemplate if he can crawl, he attempts it. He doesn't seek approval to explore, he moves. He tumbles, rises, vocalizes, and reaches, not from a place of certainty, but because he hasn't yet been taught to be afraid. Doubt is not natural. It is instructed. It is mirrored. It is rehearsed. By adulthood, you've been told, directly or otherwise, that your strength is risky, that your ambition must be moderated, that grand visions are for other people. But here is the powerful truth. If doubt was acquired, then belief can be constructed. That construction starts with one radical act of defiance, rejecting the notion that you must be cautious simply because those around you modeled caution. Consider the architect of the modern automobile. He lacked formal pedigree and inherited wealth, yet he refused to adopt a mindset of limitation. When experts declared his dream of an accessible car for every family was folly, he answered with movement. His own team of educated engineers insisted an 8-cylinder engine crafted from a single piece of metal was an engineering fantasy. His response was consistent and clear: make it happen. He didn't say it once. He repeated it every time they presented him with a setback. That isn't merely brilliance or fortune. That is conviction. A conviction so solid, so absolute, that it didn't waver before the impossible. He conditioned his mind to obey his vision, not his circumstances. He unlearned hesitation and replaced it with decisive command, and that command became the unbreakable rule for an entire industry. Or reflect on the inventor of electric light. He confronted not 10, not 100, but over 10,000 unsuccessful experiments, 10,000 moments where uncertainty could have assumed control. But he didn't host doubt because he had constructed something more robust, a sovereign identity. He didn't muse, perhaps I can. He declared, I am the man who will. That self-concept became an impervious armor. With each failed trial, he didn't absorb the failure, he progressed. His belief wasn't anchored in current evidence. It was anchored in relentless repetition. He told himself again and again that a solution existed, that he would find it, that persistence would yield results. And so it did. Understand this deeply. Belief is not a fleeting emotion. It is not something you accidentally discover. It is constructed with the same deliberate methodology as a skyscraper or a daily ritual. Through consistent daily acts of will and discipline, you select belief even when it feels foreign. You repeat belief even when your former self protests. You carry yourself like the individual who knows, even when a fragment of you still questions, until that fragment is no longer granted an audience. That's what the steel magnate comprehended. When I immersed myself in his philosophy and methodology, I uncovered a transformative principle. He viewed belief not as supplementary, but as structural, the very foundation. He once stated, a man who does not govern his own thoughts will find them governed by another. And that is precisely what doubt signifies. Evidence that you've surrendered your inner authority. Not intentionally, but gradually through 1,000 small concessions. But that ends now. Because now you are conscious. Now you recognize the origin of the hesitation you carry. It wasn't born with you. It was gifted to you. And now you are returning that gift. Say this aloud. This doubt does not belong to me. I choose to release it. Say it again. I do not live by procrastination. I live by decisive action. This is your beginning. Not by feeling powerful, but by articulating power. By adopting a posture that broadcasts certainty, even before certainty is fully matured. Because the subconscious mind doesn't comply with logic. It complies with repetition. Every time you move like a founder, speak like a visionary, act like a victor, you are laying another brick in the edifice of belief. The person you were meant to become already resides within. They are simply waiting for the static to cease. They are awaiting the order to emerge. Your past is not a prophecy, it is just preparation. Now let's delve into the mechanism. How does this repetition actually forge a new you? It operates on a principle of neurological, of carving new pathways through the raw material of your mind. Each deliberate thought, each spoken declaration is a chisel strike. At first, the groove is shallow. It feels unnatural, even foolish. But with consistent strikes, the groove deepens. It becomes a channel. Soon, thought and energy begin to flow along this new path of least resistance. What was once an effortful choice becomes your autopilot. The old path, the one of hesitation, grows over with disuse. This isn't metaphysics, it's the documented science of neuroplasticity. Your brain is malleable clay, and you are the sculptor. The question is, are you sculpting with intention, or are you letting the wind and rain of random experience shape you? Let's now discuss the most potent instant in any person's journey. The moment they make a decision so lucid, so permanent, that the former self cannot persist beside it. Here is a reality too many never grasp. Identity is not found. It is decreed. You do not accidentally stumble into significance. You proclaim it. You do not linger until you feel confident. You decide that from this point forward, confidence will be your stance. You do not hope to someday be fearless. You choose to act despite fear. And that very choice reprograms the essence of who you are. Every person operates from an identity. The issue is that most operate from an identity they never consciously selected, a patchwork identity assembled from random events, from repetition of fear, from the narrow viewpoints of limited thinkers. And because they never vocally declared who they were, they become a mosaic of conflict, potent in possibility but frozen in practice. The great minds I've studied, those who etched their names into the annals of accomplishment, all performed one initial act. They decided who they were, not based on their situation or their transient feelings, but based on a clear vision. Let's return to the automaker. Before he was an industrial titan, he made a simple decree: he would construct a vehicle for the everyday person. One sentence. One commitment, one line drawn. Once that decision was cemented, everything transformed. He ceased acting as a technician. He ceased thinking as an employee. He became a builder of systems, of paradigms, of a future only he could perceive. When the world doubted him, when institutions and specialists ridiculed his goal, he did not bend. Why? Because his identity was already decided. He had chosen who he was. Once a person makes that choice, the world loses its power to label them. The inventor did the identical thing. Do you suppose he became an innovator by chance? That the luminous bulb was a fortunate accident? No, he decided long before the world believed in him. He stated, "I will light the world." Then he commenced walking toward that vision each day. When others labeled him a madman, when failure was his daily companion, when results remained absent for years, he continued. Because in his mind, the outcome was already real. He was merely waiting for reality to synchronize. Understand what I'm conveying. Results follow identity, not the reverse. If you are convinced you must achieve first in order to claim greatness, you have already conceded. The individuals who rise are those who decide to rise. First in silence. First in solitude. First without a single piece of corroborating evidence. This principle applies to far more than historic figures. Consider the artist who must declare, "I am a painter," before selling a single canvas. The entrepreneur who must claim, "I am a founder," before securing the first investment. The writer who must state, "I am an author," while facing a blank page. The declaration precedes the validation. It is the spark that ignites the engine of effort. Without it, effort is scattered, easily discouraged, and lacks the unifying force of a coherent self. Even the leader who guided a nation through civil war was not directed by public sentiment. He was directed by decision. He didn't require universal agreement before he acted. He had already determined the worth of liberty, the importance of unity, the inherent dignity of every person. Because that decision was final, apprehension could not fracture him. Now it is your turn. You must engrave your identity in granite, not sketch it in dust. Declare it. Who are you? Who have you decreed you will be? Irrespective of your history up to this moment, because until that decree is made, hesitation will always have a microphone. You must state aloud, "I am not a person of delay. I am a person of execution. I do not wander between selves. I have chosen one, and I operate from it." Do not say it once. Say it until your subconscious hears it so frequently so unmistakably that it accepts it as irrevocable law. That is how belief transforms into identity. That is how a decision shapes destiny. Let me offer you a practice, the same one I observed in the lives of the industrialists, the inventors, the magnates. Each morning, before the world injects its narrative, you speak. You declare your identity aloud, not with wishfulness, but with authority. You write it. You repeat it. You move in congruence with it, even when it doesn't yet feel authentic, because feeling will follow form. You must sculpt the identity, and the corresponding emotion will rise to reinforce it. The magnate used to say, a person's habits are merely their beliefs in motion. And what are habits, if not repeated actions born from a chosen self-concept? Now let's address the inevitable friction. When you start this practice, a war will break out inside you. The old identity, comfortable in its familiar chains, will rebel. It will send envoys of discomfort, nostalgia for the easier path, and clever intellectual arguments for why you should just be realistic. This inner conflict is not a sign you are failing. It is proof you are succeeding. You are applying pressure, and pressure creates the heat necessary for transformation. Do not negotiate with these envoys. Do not debate them. Acknowledge their presence. Ah, there's the old story. And then return to your new script. Your consistency is your authority. Your repetition is your army. The individual who perceives themselves as sovereign does not move like a subordinate. The person who has decided to lead does not wait for a committee. The person who knows they are meant to prevail does not flirt with hesitation. They advance, and with each step, their identity solidifies until they become an undeniable force. So I ask you now, what decision have you been postponing? What version of yourself have you delayed? What identity are you pretending is not yours to claim? Let that end here, in this moment. Today you decide. You inscribe the new name. You declare the new framework. You incinerate the pathways to the old self and never glance backward. Let this be the demarcation line. From this instant forward, you do not doubt. You decide. And the world, it adjusts. But this adjustment is not passive. The world adjusts because you begin to perceive it differently. Opportunities you once overlooked suddenly become visible. Resources you thought were out of reach reveal themselves. People aligned with your new frequency begin to appear. This is the law of resonance in action. When you change your internal vibration, your identity, you begin to attract circumstances that match it. You are not waiting for the world to give you permission. You are broadcasting a new signal, and the world has no choice but to tune in. This brings us to the final practical integration. Knowledge without application is just noise. So here is your first action, to be taken within the next 24 hours. I want you to perform a simple, powerful ritual of closure and commencement. Find a quiet space. Take a piece of paper. On the left side, write down the core identity you are consciously retiring. The I am statements that have limited you. I am someone who overthinks. I am unlucky with opportunities. I am not a leader. Speak them aloud one final time, with the solemnity of a funeral dirge. Then, physically and symbolically, destroy that paper. Tear it, burn it safely, shred it. That chapter is closed. Now take a new, clean piece of paper. On it, inscribe your new decree. Write it as a proclamation, in the present tense, as if it is already true. I am a decisive architect of my reality. I act with conviction and attract aligned opportunities. I lead with clarity and inspire action. Sign your name at the bottom. Date it. This is your new covenant with yourself. Place this paper where you will see it every morning. Read it aloud with gravity. Let this be the cornerstone of your new mental architecture. If this rewiring of your mindset resonated, If you felt that internal shift begin, then do this for me, like this video. It signals to the algorithm that this content matters, helping others find their way to winds of thought. And subscribe for weekly guidance on mastering your inner world. Your future self is waiting for you to make this law. They are watching this moment right now, grateful that you finally chose to begin. Doubt is a guest you've been treating like the landlord. Evict it. Your mind is your kingdom. Reign over it with the sovereignty you were born to wield.